All right, let's just jump right in. Mindfulness. You see that word absolutely everywhere, right? In our hospitals, in the military, even in our schools. But here's the weird thing. The more popular it gets, the less clear it seems to be what it actually is. We're going to unpack why this hugely popular idea is also one of the most confusing.
You know, this quote from the Buddhist scholar Bhikkhu Bodhi just hits the nail on the head. Vague and elastic. It means the word mindfulness has been stretched so much to cover so many different things that it's kind of lost its shape. It can mean one thing to a scientist, something totally different to a corporate coach, and something else entirely to a Buddhist monk.
And this isn't some minor trend. The scientific interest in this has just exploded. I mean, we went from just a few studies back in the 80s to over 3,000 a year in recent years. Now, with that much research going on, you'd think we'd have a pretty solid definition by now, wouldn't you? Well, that's where the story gets really interesting.
Just look at this list. I mean, who is supposedly practicing mindfulness? You've got soldiers in the US Army, you've got pro athletes, politicians, then you've got doctors and students, and yes, that's not a typo, even Cookie Monster from Sesame Street is apparently doing it. So when the same word is used for a soldier in combat and a beloved puppet, you really have to stop and ask, what are we talking about here? What's the one thing that connects all of these different people and practices? That's the big mystery we're going to try to solve today. What does this word mindfulness actually point to?
And here's the real twist. The problem isn't that we don't have a definition for mindfulness. Oh no, the problem is we have a flood of them. The word has basically become this giant catch-all bag for dozens of different ideas, states of mind, and exercises, and a lot of them actually contradict each other.
And listen, this isn't just some casual disagreement over coffee. Inside the scientific community itself, there is no single agreed-upon definition. Researchers have basically thrown their hands up, saying that getting everyone to agree on one definition seems almost impossible. And that, as you can imagine, creates some serious problems for the research.
So let's get into the weeds a little bit. Let's break down three of the biggest disagreements, the fundamental ways that the definitions just don't line up. Okay, first up, is mindfulness a specific type of meditation, or is it more like a general ingredient in all meditation? So on one side, you have researchers who say mindfulness is just another word for vipassana, or insight meditation. That's where you're observing things as they change. But then you have this other group saying, no. Mindfulness is a core process. It's the thing that keeps your attention on track, whether you're doing insight meditation or concentration meditation. So right off the bat, we have a massive split.
The second big debate is all about the kind of attention we're talking about. There's this really popular idea of bare attention, this idea that you're in a pure state, just registering what's happening without analyzing it. But that view is directly challenged by traditional practices that are also called mindfulness, like contemplating the repulsiveness of the body, which, absolutely requires you to think and examine things. These two are just not the same.
And this one is huge. This brings us to probably the most famous idea about mindfulness today, that it has to be non-judgmental. You just accept every thought, every feeling as it is. But critics point out that this clashes with the Buddhist roots of the practice, where the whole point is ethical growth. And to grow, you have to be able to tell the difference between helpful states, like compassion, and unhelpful ones, like anger. I mean, if you're truly non-judgmental about everything, does that mean greed is just as valid as generosity?
So you can see, these are not just some nerdy academic debates. These conflicting ideas lead directly to this wild, dizzying variety of different exercises that all get crammed under the single label of mindfulness.
And this table just illustrates it perfectly. Take a look at some of these famous mindfulness-based programs. MBSR has you doing body scans. MBCT includes mindful yoga. MBRP, which is for relapse prevention, has an exercise called surfing on desires. So are all of these really the same thing? Are they all mindfulness? Or have we just thrown a bunch of different techniques into one bucket and slapped a popular label on it?
At this point, you might be thinking, okay, I get it, the definition's a mess. But so what? Why does it matter? Well, it matters a lot. This conceptual fog has real, tangible consequences that are actually hurting the entire field. Think of it like a domino effect. Because the term is so loose, scientists end up comparing studies that are looking at completely different practices. This leads to sketchy meta-analyses and measurement scales that don't match up. It makes it almost impossible to figure out what the active ingredient is, like what part of the program is actually working. And of course, this vagueness throws the doors wide open for over-the-top commercialization, mindful coloring books, And ultimately, it gives critics plenty of ammunition to try and discredit the whole field.
So, yeah, it's a bit of a mess, but there is a way forward. The authors of the paper we're looking at propose a really smart solution that doesn't involve getting stuck in an endless war over one perfect definition. It's about changing our whole approach.
Now, to get this solution, we mean one key idea, and that's the word hyperonym. It sounds fancy, but it's super simple. A hyperonym is just a big umbrella word for a category. Fruit is a perfect hyperonym. It's the general category. Apple, banana, those are the specific things inside the category. Right? You wouldn't do a scientific study on the nutritional value of fruit. You'd study apples or you'd study bananas. And that is the core of the proposal. Let's stop trying to force mindfulness to mean one specific thing. Instead, let's just agree to treat it as a hyperonym, a broad category name for a whole range of different contemplative practices, the same way fruit is a category for different foods. This then lets us take a clear three-step approach that's all about the actual practice. First, researchers have to stop just saying they studied mindfulness. They need to describe the exact exercises they used, the instructions, how long they did it, everything. Second, the community needs to build a shared vocabulary to actually classify all these different types of meditation. And third, once we have that, we can finally study the specific effects of specific exercises, building our knowledge from the ground up.
And what's so fascinating is that this very modern scientific solution actually brings us full circle, right back to the historical roots of these practices. Bhikkhu Bodhi points out that in traditional Buddhism, the focus was always on the exercises, on the how-to. In fact, he says you can search the ancient texts and you won't even find a neat, tidy definition of sati, the Pali word we translate as mindfulness. The focus was on what you do, not on defining an abstract concept.
So this all leads us to a really powerful shift in thinking. It suggests that maybe all this time we've been asking the completely wrong question. The question that's caused all this confusion has been,
What if, instead of asking that, we started asking a much better, much more precise set of questions? What specific kind of meditation is this? What exactly are the instructions? And what is it supposed to be for? By shifting our focus away from a fuzzy label and onto the concrete practice, we might finally find our way out of the mindfulness maze.